I just wanted to start with some basics. Talk about what UHY does and just in general terms. I don't need like the whole history of the firm or anything. In general terms, what does UHY do and what is your role
Yep.
in general in the company?
Yeah, so really international UHY is a global organization. We have offices, we have more than 38 offices in the United States. We have more than 100 offices internationally. I am located in our Michigan practice out of Sterling Heights, Michigan, is where I'm currently located. But we really are like I say, I've been here with the firm for almost 29 years, more than 29 years now. And it's really because we are an entrepreneurial firm. We really are very focused on how do we not just help clients account for the numbers, but how do we help them grow, achieve their goals? And that's really been our focus from whether it's a test services, tax services, advisory services. It's really what we call our UHY 360. We can help companies whether they're growing, we can help them manage their business, we can help them transform and ultimately transition. And so my area of focus has been manufacturing. I lead the national manufacturing team. I've been very fortunate to have a great team and really build a practice around helping companies, grow and ultimately transact. Has been a big part of our practice.
Yeah.
So,
you're the lead partner for the national manufacturing practice. Tell me what that means. What does that tell us about what you do?
yeah, so we operate in a few verticals. So I lead nationally wise, we have our automotive practice, which I predominantly lead that practice out of Michigan. We have our aerospace and defense practice, really led from Larry Ciclosa. We have an industrials group that's led by several partners in Michigan and also in New York and St. Louis. So we're very focused on certain verticals, and we try to go deep. Obviously, automotive being in Michigan is one of our largest.
Sure.
That's probably what I'm probably most well known for is our automotive practice, and mainly suppliers. So those, think of middle market suppliers. That's really what we focus on. Companies that are anywhere from 10 million in revenue, maybe up to $1 billion. But our sweet spot, relies on that kind of lower middle market is what we focus on. Family owned, maybe private equity owned companies is where our focus lies.
So you advise clients on how to handle their money, or?
No, so we do have a wealth management group. We do have that, yes. But really what we focus on, you think of a traditional CPA, right? I am a CPA by trade, so audit partner. So we do year-end audits,
okay.
for companies. We do their taxes, but also what we do is for a lot of our clients is that advisory focus. That's what really, makes our clients sticky and stay with us is, there's a lot of great auditors out there, but is there really a lot of great advisors? That's where we think we're better at. And that's where we've been really successful is building our advisory practice to help companies, whether it's out on the plant floor, maybe it's, on the front end of the organization on, finances, cash flow management, to procurement, to digital transformation. So we touch every part of a business organization, even sales sometimes. So
your main areas of focus, you said, are automotive and manufacturing. Let's talk about automotive first, because you mentioned the rain delay on EV, which I thought was a great way of putting it. It does seem like the push for EV is, if not stopping, it's certainly slowing. Is that how you see it? And why do you think that is?
Yeah, there's definitely, when you look out in that you look at other countries, China for the first time had more than 50% of their new car sales being electric vehicles. Europe, is getting, these other countries are accelerating. And the biggest inhibitor, I've been driving an EV, not because I'm trying to save the planet, for the last 7 years, but it really was to understand, what were the hurdles? What were the roadblocks to really the tipping point to mass adoption? And when you really step back, cost, yes, is an inhibitor. That is right there. But I think the number one thing when I set back and drive one is it's it's inconvenience. And it really comes down to the charging, the infrastructure, and the ability to charge quickly and rapidly is the hurdle. And that will be overcome. I am no doubt in my mind that the technology that I see in battery, that are technologies that are coming will solve this issue, and we will get there, and we will be in a rain delay. But I go back to our 2021 manufacturing outlook where we had a big stop button, and we had next slide was don't panic, because it couldn't accelerate to the levels that really the government wanted us to get to, because a number of things from supply chain to battery to infrastructure. There was just so many forces, and we couldn't overcome all of them in that rapid of time. So that's why I'm kind of calling it a rain delay, because I think the technology is, having driven one, is amazing. There's a lot of great features of low maintenance. And people say I have range anxiety. Well, a lot of vehicles today can get 300-400 miles of range. And so we're getting to a tipping point. Range won't be the issue. It really is that infrastructure. Where do I charge? I don't live near a charge. It's inconvenient. We put gas stations on each side of the road because we don't want to make a U-turn to go to a gas station. So
Right.
we have to make it convenient. And when we do that, when it's convenient, it'll be simple. For me, I'm fortunate. I charge at home. I have, my wife drives a, ICE vehicle, internal combustion, and we switch if I happen to go someplace far, right? But we'll get there. We'll get past that tipping point. That's why I still feel it's not if, it's when. But we are certainly in a period where, we got a little bit, the cart got a little bit in front of the horse.
Right.
But we will get there. I think we certainly will, as everything starts to come into line, as R&D and technology begins to rapidly advance. So
When he first started pushing it, if I remember correctly, President Biden wanted like all EV by 2030.
yeah,
We're not going to make it, are we?
no, we're not going to make it. When you look at and some of the estimates of some of the other automaker, the other, global authorities on production volumes, we're in the 35 to maybe 50%. We've kind of been in this 20 to 25% by 2030, but we're kind of on track when you look at early projections of being 7 to 10% of new car sales, and we're there. I mean, there's, whether we'll see all of them, but there at one point there was almost 180 new vehicle launches in EVs in the next few years. So there's a lot of new product coming, and some of it's super exciting, but some of those will probably get pushed out a little bit until we kind of get the house in order, and so we're just not quite at that tipping point of mass adoption, but we will get there. It's just going to take a little longer, but you don't know. I mean, with government standards, they could really make it hard, and make it and kind of force our hand. We'll see if that happens, but right now, I think it's good for all automakers to take a breather and take a step back, and maybe hybrid is, like I say, is kind of the interim right now, and we'll get there. So
Let's just take a minute and talk about accountancy. That's one of your areas.
Yeah.
You're a CPA. My daughter is an accountant. She's not a CPA yet, but she is an accountant. I am a journalist. I don't do math. Are you having trouble? What's the outlook like for people who want to go into that? Are you having trouble attracting people?
Well, it's certainly very obvious. It's in several articles, and you read out there is the number of students going into accounting is down anywhere from 10 to 30% for some schools. Um, you know, I do think, there's I want to say a lot of blame. I don't know, blame is the right word, but there's also been, the world's changed. There's just a lot more, maybe exciting, what is deemed exciting opportunities in software and what's happened with the internet and B2B and B2C. And, there's just a lot changing on social media. And counting and their starting pay didn't really catch up. And so when you look at it, and they changed to a 5-year degree, it got very expensive to become a CPA and a very low
Well, I
starting
didn't realize
salary.
it was a 5-year degree now.
Yeah, and that's one of the, we think, one of the mistakes or pitfalls that was made was, I would rather see students spend that 5th year working with us
Right.
than, because I don't find that the students are any smarter or any better off or ahead by that 5th year. So there's a lot of opportunity, but the message and and that CPAs are bean counters, and that's just it's far from the truth if you really look at it. And what our clients most look to us for is being a trusted advisor. And that's what really kept me in the business, really, because I'll be honest, I thought, I'd do 5 or 7 years, I'd go out, maybe start my own business. And then what I really learned is that, man, I can really be help many of these companies and be kind of like their interim, CFO or, their advisor to help them grow. And so that's been really rewarding. And that's the most satisfying. There's obviously a lot of great firms, but that do great audits and taxes, but the industry is kind of getting molded into a commodity, and that's not good, because our foundation of numbers and balance sheets and financials and is the foundation that is really strong to help companies grow. So.
Yeah. Clearly you love it. And as I told you, I'm a journalist. I don't do math, so I don't love it. What got you into being an accountant? What have you always known that's what you wanted to do, or?
Originally when I was growing up, I always loved cars. I was always a car guy. And I think my father ultimately always wanted me, you need to be an engineer. You need to work, on cars, and it was one day I was actually at a class that, I had an economics professor, and I really loved economics. I really, truly did. And he was really a guiding force that said, a CPA is a great foundation, and you can always, if you're a CPA, you can then become an engineer. And I want to say kind of the rest is history a little bit. But that was a great advice that I got, that it was a very big, it's a foundation. And I was very fortunate to find a passion for it and be able to kind of grow my skill sets. And, I did a lot of costing and contract negotiations and a lot of different, that I didn't just, when you think of accounting and maybe you get into a big four and you're like in the derivatives department, or, certain areas in a very specialized, and what's very well much needed. I got a very broad, opportunity, within UHY, working on middle market companies, that I have a very broad background in a lot of areas. And we're very proud of that, because we work, with our middle market clients that we work with.
I saw that you are leading, or at least, and I think you mentioned it, the discussion that you're going to have in New York about
Yeah.
navigating the next industrial transformation.
Mhm.
What is that going to be? What is that going to look like, the next transformation?
Well, if you want me to give it away, but yeah, the next industrial transformation really, it's an inflection point that we see, and partly coming out of, COVID shed the light on, U.S. manufacturing, and we learned that, you know, personal protective equipment, ventilators. I mean, we learned that, wow, our supply chain, like, we don't make as much stuff as we thought. And it's
Right.
not a bad thing. We just probably don't make a lot of the commodity stuff that you buy in general stores. We become very, value added type manufacturers, right? But the inflection point really is in the digital, in the not digital, but the industrial transformation we see is really around its disruption. And that's what we think that, and you say, well, what does that really mean? It's kind of a longer story around the amount of disruption that is happening in the world is creating mass opportunity in the US for manufacturers to take advantage. It's kind of another like once in a lifetime opportunity. Can we take advantage? Can our middle market companies accelerate and step up and, with technology through AI, begin to really, become the manufacturing leader of all goods and services? And so, when we look at, like I say, geopolitical is driving it. There's a lot of, de-risking, right? So you see some of it coming back. We have political, I would say, sometimes chaos. What does that mean? But technology is advancing at a rapid rate, and we're starting to see private equity really dip down into this lower middle market space with manufacturers and say, how do we rethink manufacturing today versus, what we've been focused on the last 50 or 100 years? We've kind of, if you look at the chart, employment in manufacturing is like a ski slope. Productivity has come up, but it's flat the last decade. So we've kind of squeezed everything out that we could. Now we're at this inflection point. So how do we grow again, right? How do we do that? We're probably gonna have to do that with less labor. We do know that, right? So how do we do that with technology? And there's certain companies I know out on the West Coast that have been successful in raising capital and building this type of, high tech and using machinery that is very advanced and software that's very advanced to almost run lights out operations. And I think we're going to see more and more of that to gain productivity and rethink how products are made. And so we have a lot to go through, obviously, in our outlook. I'm giving you just a little clip note, but
Yeah.
we're excited, with what we see. I know a lot of, manufacturers may feel, it's an unsettled time, right? It's a period of uncertainty of the old manufacturing that we know is really changing, and it'll look very different, I think, in 5 or 10 years. And we see, when you think of sectors, you think of the one that we're most, that we wouldn't normally think about is naval. And, the Navy hasn't been able to build ships in many years, and they want to get back to building at least three a year. So that supply chain has been decimated. So how do we rebuild that? Look at the demand for aircraft. Look at Boeing, the turmoil. Look at the backlog, how many years it takes. So you have all these industries that have a tremendous amount of opportunity. So how will the government and how will the private sector be able to invest in these, what we think high return reinvestments, will we be able to make those
Yeah.
and achieve success?
Um, are there any sectors of the industry that fare better or fare worse or have better prospects than others?
Um, I I do think when I look out, I think aerospace and defense could fare very well. That's one of our top industries that we do like. Um, we do think there's certain medical from a national defense. We think that obviously you're seeing the investment. What we think is investments made in the chip manufacturing is very, very important. We think that could be very well. It's whether mining will be turned on or will we have a political issue there, but mining could be a big opportunity. Um, sectors that I am a little bit concerned about in the U.S. is still a little bit around automotive, believe it or not. We are, it is kind of it's electrification so quickly is turning into a race to the bottom, and the U.S. manufacturers have been, obviously with the latest UAW, I mean, there's a big cost increase. So that's going to come from somewhere, something, it's going to come from suppliers. It's going to, something, you see Stellantis pulling some of their engineering and, offshore into other countries. So something's going to break a little bit there. Or, the OEMs will become very kind of more nichey. You'll see much more niche products than high volume.
Yeah.
And something we presented on last year, we really like the sector, those companies that can really compete in a high mix, low volume is going to be, they will be very well positioned in a broad range of industries.
Yeah. Well, Sean Fain went nuts about Stellantis at the convention the other night.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. It's a tough, it's a tough position, because you have a company that's trying to compete globally,
Right.
and when the rest, these, BYD and other, I mean, there's a lot of competition that is producing vehicles at a lower cost. What are you going to do? So you can add tariffs. That just adds more cost to consumers, right? So it's not truly an answer, right? It really is about, we have to really find ways to increase productivity, which is, again, it's been somewhat flat, but getting better. But I think it's going to that's going to accelerate. It's going to really accelerate here in the next 5 to 10 years. If something doesn't break, right? So,
we're in the middle of a campaign season, an election season. So depending on who you listen to, manufacturing is either being destroyed in this country or it's coming roaring back. What's the truth? Who's right?
I'll be honest. When I look back, ultimately, as a country that's really based on capitalism, we're one of the few remaining countries. That is the key to our country's success. Don't break capitalism. I'll be honest. Politics can be there. They will. We are seeing a period of time that we could see where the government is picking more winners and losers than really the private sector. Is that good or bad? Depends on what side you're on. It can be good, right? If you're big on energy or feel that's that's a sector, that's one I probably mismentioned is, obviously the energy sector is on our list of high growth potentially. So that could be very, you have a Democratic win, energy is going to be a winner, on the, for solar, wind, and alternative, energy. You got a Republican win and you got oil and gas.
Yeah.
Winner, but ultimately, our government hasn't meddled as much in the private sector, but we're seeing, and we saw some big bets through the Inflation Reduction Act. You might like some of it or hate some of it, but there's some investments being made. I do feel the CHIPS Act was, a very prudent and a necessary investment, that we've gone from over 40% of chip manufacturing in the 90s to less than 10%. And our goal is to get that back up to at least 20%. And I think that's very, very important for a sector that everything is so reliant on chips today and growing. So, ultimately, we always tend to find our way no matter who's in office. And I think that will continue. Taxes are certainly front and center for what for our middle market manufacturers. The less dollars they have, obviously, the less dollars they can reinvest. That's certainly, there's a balance, right? So, but I think ultimately, I always tell clients, stay the course and focus on what you can control, not what you can't control sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
one of the breakout sessions that's listed on the agenda for your event next month has to do with a policy shift and how that's going to affect things. What policy shift are you talking about, and what effect will it have?
well, a little bit what we talked about. So it will depend on, like you say, under a Democratic leadership, we will see more dollars funded, in the buckets that they want to see it, right? Now, are those great investments? Remains to be seen on some of them, right? So that policy shift, again, like we talked about, if you get a Trump win, you're going to have a policy shift back to drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
So
he says that almost every day.
Yeah. So we have a very big, stark, and energy. We're kind of worlds apart. So what I see as the opportunity for both parties really, and is that where we got a little bit soft is really in our trades. We missed that. And Mexico actually has done a very, very good job with their trade schools. In addition, they're graduating more engineers than we are in the U.S. right now. So we need to make that investment in education. I found, I've been supporting this, is that our K through 12 really needs a bit of an overhaul. So who's going to make that big bet? So that's very, very important from a policy shift. We need to, because the future of the workforce is probably not with our hands as much as it is with our minds.
Right.
And, that STEM, and, it's a real important shift that we have this opportunity, that we have some of the greatest corporations in the world here in the U.S. We've been very, very fortunate. We have the greatest leadership, and so, but we don't want to fall behind as we have in our K through 12. We need to make that rich investment to make sure that we stay, a world power. And I think it's very, very important investment that needs to be made.
Yeah. You mentioned it earlier, and you really can't get into a discussion almost about anything without mentioning AI. What role is AI going to play in your two areas of expertise, do you think?
So AI is changing at an accelerated pace. For most of our middle market manufacturing companies that we work with, they're still, it's in this kind of, I'm trying to figure it out phase, right? And Corey McNeely on our digital transformation team will be speaking on the subject, and he's been incorporating some AI into some of the projects that they're working on, out on the shop floor, and taking steps and removing steps, and again, streamlining processes, right? I was just out at a client yesterday, automation company. They make unbelievable, automation assembly lines, right? And he said, today I have, over 30 programmers programming software. He believes in the next 5 years that he may not need 30 programmers once AI is able, the simplicity of it will really help accelerate his timelines. Now, will he be able to do more now with those 30, or will he not need those 30? So, so AI is probably a blessing to some and a curse for others. And that's why we've been really talking about it. I get it, from a middle market, like, okay, like, what do I do with this? Like, in some cases, there's AI and you don't even know it. I was just at another company the other day that does, that they do called Detect It, that does, they can quality, you can teach it to identify errors, problems in products, and so it'll tell you. And so you just, you program once and you say, this is a good part, that's a bad part. And so there's lots of software out there that is beginning to really advance, and move the ball. And it's just we're still in the second inning of getting it into mainstream. We're kind of working out the bugs, but I do truly believe that you're going to see a rapid acceleration of AI technology that will really have a meaningful impact. I don't know, is that within 5 years or within 10? I think it's quicker. I think it's sooner than we think.
Yeah.
From what I see, because some of this is right now, it's in this like R&D and like who's gonna be the guinea pigs for it, So that's what we're kind of working through. But you'll see more and more of it become mainstream, and I'm sure there's some companies saying, well, we already are mainstream. Probably are. But I'm just saying, in middle market manufacturers are family-owned businesses that we know today. It's just now maybe trickling down into their processes or into their ERP or MRP systems, or so there's a lot to come. And Corey will be putting on a great presentation of how he is using AI with our clients. So
yeah. The fact that you can teach it scares me a little, because I keep thinking of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right. That's where we're headed. That's exactly where we're headed. So,
I
Brad,
assume
exactly.
I assume you wrote your LinkedIn bio, and on there it says you're known as the great disruptor. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, you have a lot of accountants out there, a lot of great accountants, and there's a lot of great
the status quo. That's what it says.
Right, and a lot of accountants are, will go along and be a yes accountant to their clients and go, whatever you say, yes, that sounds good. I've been known to challenge clients. I've been known to think out of the box. I know one of my clients, when I have quarterly meetings with him, he goes, I'm always nervous the day before because I don't know what you're going to ask me.
Exactly.
I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I'm always nervous. I'm like, he goes, he says it's a good thing because it keeps me on my toes, because and that's what we try to be, right? And we are a disruptor of the status quo because if you are doing things the same and you're not changing, you will be left behind. Yeah. There is no doubt in my mind that what happened out of COVID accelerated technology, accelerated, the ability to do things remotely. There's so much that has happened, and it's good, but it's you have to have the ability to change and adopt, and just doing things the same as you did them every day is a recipe for potential disaster. So I'm always pushing our clients to think differently, grow when they don't think they need to grow, push themselves to maybe do an add-on acquisition, do something that's out of their comfort zone, and we're there to guide them and support them along their journey, what we call their business journey.
Yeah. And, it seems to me, not only do you have to be able to adapt, you have to be able to do it on the fly, or you're going to be watching the people who can do it on the fly run right past you. It seems.
And I'll be honest, when we look at our middle market, and it's been in the M&A market, public companies are buying some of my clients that are less than 20 million in revenues, right? And exactly that, because they're going to take what they have, and be able to scale it, right? Or I feel like in some of our clients' cases that they're in the back nine, they're tired, there's not much fuel, and like, now's your time to maybe, you're either a consolidator or you're a target. So, and I look at that and go, okay, I mean, I can tell you in your industry that private equity has bought X, Y, and Z companies, and you're going to be left. So what do you want to, do? Now, some will say, hey, you know what? I can be a consolidator. Absolutely. We absolutely can do that. Some will say, I'm tired, I don't, and that's okay. I mean, you built a great company. Let's monetize it. Let's maximize your return. Let's focus on, EBITDA and how do we make sure that we're, because every dollar we find or save is a multiple of that. So we're there, working alongside our clients to really make sure that we're maximizing value. And that's been what I've been most passionate about. And I've been very fortunate to be along for some very, very successful exits for our clients, and also transitions to family and sons, daughters. So it's been a lot of fun.
Manufacturing and automotive, your two areas. Are you able to just talk a little bit about the economic outlook for both of those?
Yeah. So, we've been very, when we looked back, when I presented at the Macomb Economic Outlook back in February, we did have a feeling that rates would be, in that meeting, we said that rates would probably hang on longer than what people thought. And I think that's been the case, because I just saw that inflation and pricing was still being pushed around. We are probably getting at a point where, the effects of, the dollars from PPP, the dollars from the ERC credits, and, over $5 trillion ran through this economy like a jolt,
Yeah.
And it just takes years to run that off, and we're probably getting where the monetary, the M2 money supply and everything's kind of getting, back in line. So yeah, I think we do see, some rate cuts. Obviously it's, looks like September is going to be, at least a quarter, and probably another, one or two before the end of the year. I think that overall is good, but it's also telling you that there's some softness, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know that just changing interest rates is the biggest driver of the economy. But I think it's a positive jolt. It's amazing that the auto industry, in my mind, was able to be as successful as it's been with where rates have been. Is pretty astonishing to hold on to those types of volumes. So maybe that'll take a little bit of a breather in 2025, but all the projections show that it's kind of going to hold up. So nothing's broken yet. There's nothing. Unemployment is, people are spending more because they're making more, right? But nothing, the only thing, red flag has been really inflation, but we hope that's coming down. Damage has probably been done, but at least that's slowing. We think that, if interest rates, begin to soften, that's a little bit of a good thing. obviously for manufacturers that are, looking to spend on capital equipment. The one kind of spot that could have an impact, obviously, is, the tax, Trump tax cuts, are set to expire at the end of 25.
Right.
You know, that hits a lot of middle market companies. I know, 400,000 and, won't affect them, but even those companies that are 400,000 to, a few million, I mean, is not much in the whole scheme of things. And, so that could have an impact on business. We'll see. We'll see at what kind of impact that has on manufacturing, because our bonus depreciation that we so enjoyed is slowly going away. The R&D credit is under scrutiny by the IRS, and now there's what's called, I won't get into it, but 174 capitalization of R&D. We're losing part of our interest deduction. And so we had, a client that we had that's, had lost a little bit of money, but when you add all these things back, we actually have taxable income. And so it can be a tough position for some middle market manufacturers to deal with. So we're trying to guide them and advise them as much as we can. I'm always of the preference. I'm trying to make our clients as much money as they can, and we'll worry about taxes. That's something we can deal with. So,
last thing I got, where do you get your joy? You seem very upbeat about your job, like a career you love. Where do you find your joy in this job?
My joy in this job really comes from, I think it didn't certainly come from just, being able to provide great financial statements and tax returns. Been very blessed here in our organization to work with some really great people and great leaders, and taught me really to be a great advisor first. Gordon Fulmer was a big, our founder was, he taught me that, to be, your clients won't remember you for the tax returns you did or the financial statements you did, right? They'll remember you for how you advise them, how you help their family. And I think that's what brings me joy. And I really, especially, if, a client passes away and they know that we did everything right for their estate, their family's taken care of, we have a great estate team, that we're thinking about them more than just a commodity of audit and tax returns. So that's what brings me joy. That's why I probably don't, do as much, SEC work, because that's no joy. So,
yeah, I wouldn't think so.
So,
where are you from? Are you from around here?
Yeah, I grew up actually down the street here. I grew up in Clinton Township. Went to little high school, Chippewa Valley, and I was very fortunate. My parents really wanted me to stay home, and so I ended up back to that in a little school called Walsh College.
Right.
Very thankful. Was School of Accountancy back then, and provided a very great foundation for me to become a CPA. And so I grew up on the seat side. I grew up, my joy was boating my whole life. And then I got married, and my wife's like, I get seasick. So, so don't do as much boating anymore. So
that was the last thing I was going to ask you. Do you have family you want us to mention? Wife, kids, anything? Dogs?
Yeah, I have a wife. I have a wife, Sonia. Actually, believe it or not, I'm leaving. We're going to Paris very soon here on our 20th anniversary. And I have 2 boys, 15 and 17. Vince and Evan are both our brother Rice. So
Sonia, Sonya.
Sanja. Yep.
She's
originally from Croatia. Yeah, originally from Croatia.
I've misspelled Smith before, so I always ask.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw something on your LinkedIn thing about Harvard. You did some studying at Harvard?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. Our leadership team asked me to go to Harvard's executive program. It was really a 1 week course, like a crash course on executive leadership for professional services.
Yeah.
It was really amazing, and learned a lot. And that's what I tell you. The biggest thing of going to that program was, out of the 250 attendees, I think 25% were from the U.S. And so 75% of attendees were from other countries.
Yeah.
And every one of them spoke very fluent English. I mean, just amazing cultural. I spent a lot of time with, from people from Taiwan to, um, you know, uh, to Ukraine. I mean, all kinds of places. It was just amazing. And so, yeah, it was a great, again, add to my, supported some of my thoughts around business, and it was really, really great. Taught me some really good leadership roles with working with my team.
Sounds like a heck of a career. Tom, I really appreciate it. That's all I need.
Thank you so much, Brad. I really appreciate it.